A perfect campus. Let me see. If I had to name a perfect school, I could not, because there is no perfect school, not in the United States, not in the world. I do believe that there are people on campuses, both private, public, charter, who are all trying to increase student achievement. And I think that is the goal of every school. And I think some have the resources, they have the organization, they have the structure needed in order to do it, and there may be many who could be lacking. My name is Nikin Shea Brand, and I am an instructional leader, and my goal would be to use this transformational leadership framework to ensure that I'm systematic and I'm consistent and persistent in ensuring that my campus continuously grows in student achievement. And in doing that, I think it is the perfect framework because it allows for bite size, this step by step, if you will, stage by stage, if you will. But for me, it's very attainable because it allows you to prioritize and take small chunks in order to work with those before you can move on to bigger things or a bigger part of it. For example, when they talk about stage one is the basics, is fundamental. And I think many people try to jump over that and try to hurry up and get the achievement, which I understand. I think it's very noble of them. But when I hear fundamental and I think of developmental, I love the illustration that Breakthrough Principles use when it talks about the stages of a child. Children can't walk before they learn how to turn over. I absolutely love that illustration. And I think it's the same thing for campuses. So as a brand new principal coming or assistant principal coming onto a campus, I think the very first thing that we all should do, and I know that I will do, is sit back to gather some data, do some data collection. And I think there are many ways that I can do it. One of the ways could be just observations, going around to classrooms, speaking to custodians. I could do surveys where I can send it out to all stakeholders and kind of glean from them as to what they feel like some strengths for the campus would be and some areas of growth. I could have one-on-one meetings or even like little town hall meetings with maybe team leaders, teacher leaders, and then also other community members to hear their concerns, but also to hear some of the celebrations that the campus has going on. And so that would help me kind of see where I am in the different stages. Now, when I think about the transformation leadership framework and there are five categories, and then I also think about the principal standards 1 and 4, standard 1 being the instructional leader, and then also standard 4, which is about school culture, I think about how they kind of pretty much are married together. So, for example, when you talk about learning and teaching, well, to me, that is both. That's school culture, and that's going to be educational or instructional leadership. When I look specifically at some of the indicators for instructional leadership, and I think about learning and teaching, the first thing that pops into my mind is that rigorous alignment of curriculum, also the effective instructional practices. When I think about the school culture part, there's some things that definitely needs to be taught at the basic level. So that would also tie into the stage 1 portion of the TLF. So when you talk about basic systems, clarification, making sure everybody's on the same page about the understanding of our high expectations, where we're going, what does it look like, and as far as the leadership team, everybody needs to be on the same page so that now you can clearly move to stage 2, which would extend with maybe some professional development, definitely some consistency. You would need to see a good bit of the consistency with the culture that you're putting in place, where what you're talking about mostly like your high expectations. You want to make sure that those things are set foundationally, and then you start collecting data on those things for the implementation of it, so that you can kind of review, reflect, make some amendments, and then see if you can get that extended to stage 3, which is, of course, the growth stage, is where when it is not just on the campus, your community members also know about it, the parents know about it, and not just from the school culture aspect, but also when it comes to instructional practices that you have on campus. I think it's very important that when things are worked out in small systems, it really, or small stages or small steps, it really helps for people to be able to digest it. I think going too fast, too furiously, can cause a lot of staff and stakeholders to become a little standoffish, because it's the pace of it. And so you have to be very careful of that. When I think about planning and operations. Planning and operations to me falls directly with standard 4. And then also with standard 1, because when we think about planning, I always first go directly to planning for instruction, and also with the data in mind. So how does data change or make me reflect to determine how I need to change my lessons, how I need to use different instructional strategies. So I marry those two together. And when I think about stage 1 for that, I most definitely think about what are some systems that can be in place as far as instructional strategies that everyone can use, and that we can consistently use it in order to track data, in order to track growth, and then go to stage 2, so that we can see if we can add on maybe professional development, more professional development, and giving more instructional strategies. Well, when I think of the planning and operations and I go to standard 4, I'm thinking about school safety, the environment. I'm thinking about discipline. What systems can we put in place foundationally that everybody understands, everybody knows, and they have that clear understanding before we move on to stage 2, and definitely before we get to 3. And I think the goal would always be to get to 3 and sustain that, so that now we can look at another area, which could be talent management. Talent management for me kind of lined up also with standard 1 and standard 4, because when I think of school culture and then talent management, I want to make sure all of my staff members are in their places and they're operating in their strength in order to ensure that school culture is uh, thriving. I do not want a person, and I know sometimes it may not necessarily work out that way, but I don't necessarily want a person in an area that it is not their heart. So to the best of my ability, I want to place people on my campus where they have a heart for it, and so that I know that it's not a buy-in. They actually believe in it, and that kind of ties along too with standard 4, because when I think about um, those loving what they do and then maximizing the learning for all students, it kind of goes hand in hand. When a person is passionate about what they actually teach, then they're passionate with all their students about how they're learning it. And I think for me, it allows you to create different ways to ensure that students are learning what they should learn. And you're willing to go the extra mile. You're willing to do above and beyond that you normally wouldn't, because it is your passion. Now, as I reflect on personal leadership, I take that very personal. So I know that there are some things that, of course, I plan on continuing to learn. And I know as educators, we are literal lifelong learners. So I know that there's some things that I need to reflect for myself and learn about myself, about my strengths and my areas of growth. And I need to make sure that I'm being very reflective, not of only myself, but I'm getting feedback from others. And these others will be able to help me with my prioritizing of the areas that I need, because I can see where my impact could be positive or my impact could be negative on our student achievement. I think ensuring that I have multiple outlets or means to gather that information about myself, and then also to do the same for myself with the reflections, I think will be very beneficial to me, and also to the growth of my campus. So in conclusion, the TLF for me is a fundamental baseline of how I can continuously grow, not only myself, but my campus, my teachers, and that they learn that it is a cycle. It is not something that we just leave off on. So